Welcome to my channel. In an age where myths meet reality, Ken Yanagimoto, an awakened one with extraordinary abilities, returns to avenge his family's fate against the powerful Seven-Star Society. Join us for epic battles and a quest for justice. Enjoy watching.
On a beautiful yellow flower, a man named Chronos sat down and sighed. He remarked that even if he opened the door without the key, it would be useless. Turning his head, Chronos asked about securing the nectar. Noting that the Seven-Star Society was already taking action, a blonde-haired man named Zeus inquired whether Gaia and Silone would remain silent about the situation. Chronos stood up and dismissed the concern, saying that their silence or protest was irrelevant to him. Zeus apologized, to which Chronos responded that achieving greatness often requires sacrifices. He criticized Gaia for constantly babbling about ideals. Chronos then stepped on the flower, destroying it. And in the background, a city engulfed in flames could be seen. He declared that he was not a fool like the others, but the man destined to become the master of the world. A family photo flashed as the house burned, splattered with blood. Holding a gun, the man expressed a desire to resolve things peacefully, lamenting the complexity of the situation. He asked Leo for agreement. Yanagimoto was shot and fell in pain, his wife calling out to him. Yanagimoto looked at Mizukami and called him a bastard. Music played, and Yanagimoto expressed disappointment in Mizukami's lack of understanding. Executive Mizukami of the Seven-Star Society confronted Australia Zero, demanding the whereabouts of his daughter who ran off with the nectar recipe. Yanagimoto refused to let them harm her, angering Mizukami who threatened him with a gun. Yanagimoto smiled defiantly. Yasha, a man wearing a hood and mask, was shocked. His comrades informed him of an enemy ability user, urging him to take action. Amidst shouts to attack without hesitation, Yasha spotted something in a tree and climbed up to investigate. Stunned to find a bullet, reacting swiftly, he dodged it with his small knife. Someone called out that Yasha was approaching, emphasizing the need for backup. Yasha raced towards the enemy, feeling a sense of déjà vu from memories of a family photo. Suddenly, someone intervened, surrounding Yasha with soldiers. Using a chain around his neck, Yasha swiftly incapacitated an enemy, whose head exploded upon impact. With agile movements, Yasha swiftly dispatched the others. Observing him, a man noted Yasha didn't appear to be an awakener and prepared to kill him. They engaged in a knife fight until their weapons were thrown aside. Yasha worried about his condition worsening due to shedding, but he gathered his strength and punched the man relentlessly. Despite his adversary's taunts, Yasha assured him his current level was sufficient before finishing him off. Meanwhile, two women observed a child referring to Yasha, questioning his potential. The other woman reassured them, expressing faith in his destiny. This man woke up in Japan, feeling dizzy since his return, pondering whether his recent experiences were dreams or memories. Looking out the window, he wondered about the meaning of ki, a premonition of unease settling over him. I've been coming here with my dad since I was a kid. This man reminisced as he entered a room filled with numerous TVs, resembling an office. He noticed the dust on the table, and touched since his last visit. Opening a cabinet, he retrieved a bag and remarked on the eerie atmosphere of the hideout. Wondering what had transpired during his absence, the man grabbed a phone to contact his parents, hoping it still worked. One notification from Aki revealed trouble at his uncle's company. Upon unlocking it, he found a flood of messages awaiting him. As he scrolled through, another urgent message asked about his whereabouts and safety amidst serious developments at home. A family photo on the wall depicted this man-owned family. The name of the man is Ken. Reading further, messages from Aki indicated that contacting him via email was crucial, revealing the devastating news of his dad and mom passing, with Amii, too, missing. Ken arrived at the morgue, where he was met with condolences from someone present. They expressed their deepest sympathies, explaining that they had been unable to reach his family, and the bodies of Chiho Yanagimoto and Eriko Yanagimoto had been released over the weekend without the family's consent. Devastated, Ken's eyes welled up with tears. He poured himself a glass of liquor and placed it on a nearby table. Sitting down heavily, he then knelt on the ground, overwhelmed by grief and anger. As he knelt, his fingers dug into the ground, causing them to bleed. And he bowed his head, his forehead also touching the floor, staining it with blood. In a moment of intense emotion, Yasha lifted his head, his eyes red from crying. With determination in his voice, he declared, "I will find them. The ones who did this to my father and mother, and I will surely avenge them." On days when everything seems to go wrong, it feels as though no matter how hard you try, nothing works out. From the moment the day began, my plans for the weekend started to unravel. I wondered why there was such urgency regarding that article. Miyahara, the girl mentioned, is a reporter for the world's top news channel. Muttering complaints under his breath, he left the house in a hurry. The girl, speaking quickly, mentioned that he needed to reserve her seat for a trip to Tokyo on Sunday. It's the final day of the long weekend, and all the seats are sold out. Fortunately, she managed to secure the very last one. Of all the people she could have ended up next to, it had to be Suru. How unlucky could she get? This peculiar man lacked any semblance of common sense. What was wrong with him? He reeked of alcohol. His clothes were filthy, and he was making a mess of the seat. It seemed like he had been drinking all night. I couldn't stand the smell any longer. But she had no choice but to plug in her earphones and listen to some music to distract herself. She sighed and muttered, "This is the worst. I thought I was having a rough day since morning, but I didn't expect it to get this bad." Her earphones fell to the floor amid the chaos. Shouts echoed around her, some yelling about a fire, others about someone being injured, and many screaming not to push. In the midst of the pandemonium, Aoi thought, what on earth is happening? Injuries were widespread, with some passengers unconscious. The bus had just been in an accident. Panic surged through Ai as she realized she needed to escape quickly. She fumbled to unbuckle her seatbelt, but just as she did, the bus lurched again. Fear and shock gripped her as she wondered if she would die like this. Suddenly, someone grabbed her belt and pulled her to safety. It was Ken, the man who had been seated next to her. Holding onto the bus, Ken helped Aoi stabilize herself. He remembered him now, the peculiar man from earlier. Clutching Ken's hand, Aoi felt a surge of gratitude and said, "Thanks to you, I survived." Ken looked at her briefly, and then at the bus, seeming to notice something alarming. Before Aoi could finish thanking him, Ken let go of her. She landed painfully on the ground, bewildered and in pain. "What are you doing all of a sudden?" she shouted, but her words were cut off by a deafening explosion. The bus erupted into flames and plummeted further, tumbling into the sea. I looked on in horror, realizing there were still people inside. The scene was chaotic, with many onlookers witnessing the bus's descent into the water. On the road, numerous cars were crashing, some engulfed in flames. The bus they had been riding plunged into the sea, with many passengers still trapped inside. Fortunately, I was one of the survivors. As she processed the chaotic scene, she thought about the person who had saved her and wondered if he was still down there. Tears streamed down her face as she cried out in disbelief. No way. So many people died just like that. Amid the turmoil, people started shouting that there was a survivor. They pointed towards the sea, indicating someone who was still alive. I followed their gaze and, to her amazement, saw Ken emerging from the water, carrying someone. Using his hands, he climbed to the top, defying the odds. I could hardly believe that he had managed to survive and rescue someone else as well. Realizing the urgency of the situation, I knew she needed to inform as many people as possible. There was no time to contact her company. She grabbed her phone and began broadcasting the scene live. With a deep breath, she prepared herself to stay calm and composed, just as she always did in critical situations. On live broadcast, Ai Miyahara urgently reported from the scene of a devastating incident. This is Ai Miyahara reporting live. Just moments ago, a tragic bus accident occurred on the highway. The bus, carrying 46 passengers including the driver, plunged approximately 30 meters off a cliff. Bus was en route to Tokyo, scheduled to depart at 10:15. As of now, the rescue team has not yet arrived. The bus is dangerously close to sinking into the sea. Ai continued, her voice conveying both the urgency and gravity of the situation. Amidst this crisis, a hero has emerged, a passenger from the crashed bus. As people watched in anticipation, their eyes fixed on the bus wreckage, Ai continued her live broadcast. Viewers flooded the comments section, clamoring to know the identity of the hero emerging from the scene. He's saving the passengers all alone, continuing the action live. Ken single-handedly rescued the passengers and successfully rescued the passengers. During the torrential downpour, he diligently ushered everyone to a secure location, ensuring their safety amidst the storm. Meanwhile, Ali's phone buzzed with a message from someone questioning the meaning behind the emergency broadcast she had mentioned. Confused, the sender added, "You didn't call me either. I thought you were heading to the office." Ali swiftly replied, reassuring them, "No, now isn't the appropriate moment to announce an accident." Feeling a sense of urgency, Ali seized the opportunity and swiftly grabbed her tablet. She knew she had to gather comprehensive information and relay the situation to the office without delay. I messaged the office, expressing her situation. "I don't have time to pause and gather all details, but I'll provide a brief explanation soon." She continued, "The boss I traveled with to Tokyo has been involved in an accident. Please grant me permission to access the server and broadcast this critical update." Back at the office, this man, serving as the team leader, took charge and assessed the situation. "What do we do now?" Recognizing the urgency, the broadcast station was bustling with activity and opted to go live on air immediately. I observed in horror as the bus began to flip over amidst the strong waves and torrential rain. Hastily grabbing her camera, she positioned it on a nearby stone to capture the unfolding disaster. The bus continued to tilt precariously, eventually succumbing to the elements and starting to sink. One of the survivors cried that her kid is still inside. Someone calmed her down and said, "You can't go there." The woman cried hopeless, said that the bus will sink and get that kid is. "This is no point in saving me without my kid." Ken heard the woman. "The bus is completely sink." Someone tried to console her, urging her not to attempt to rescue herself. Ken looked to sea, looked to the air. Yasha ran and jumped to the water. One of the survivors cried out in desperation that her child was still trapped inside the sinking bus. "That man from earlier is going back into the bus." Ken dove into the water and swiftly located the sinking bus. With his eyes glowing intensely like the sun, he activated his unique ability, granting him a sort of X-ray vision to scan through the bus and locate the trapped child. Ken quickly identified the child's position, swam towards the bus, and deftly cleared the obstruction. Grabbing the child, Yasha swiftly swam back to safety. As he glanced back at the bus, his eyes widened in realization. "That bus is going to explode," he exclaimed, his senses heightened with the impending danger. I anxiously scanned the surface of the sea, her heart racing with concern as she waited for Ken to emerge. Thoughts raced through her mind. Was he still trapped inside the bus? Suddenly, her attention was drawn to the bus itself as it began to emit an ominous glow. Confusion rippled through the onlookers as they questioned the strange noise emanating from the bus. "Why aren't they coming out?" Someone voiced their worrying aloud. Before anyone could react, the bus exploded once more, sending shockwaves through the water. Panic ensued among those witnessing the explosion. The realization dawned that the people inside the bus were in grave danger. Amidst the chaos, the woman cried out in anguish, desperately pleading for her son's safety. Others restrained her from rushing into the water, urging her to stay back. In the midst of despair, a glimmer of hope emerged as a hand broke through the water's surface. Ken emerged from the water, clinging to a rock with one hand and holding the rescued child securely with the other. The woman, overwhelmed with relief and gratitude, cried out upon seeing her child safe in Ken's arms. With tearful eyes, she took her child into her embrace, repeatedly expressing her heartfelt thanks to Ken for saving her son's life. Ken, still focused and composed, gazed silently at the woman and her child. His expression conveyed a mix of exhaustion from the ordeal and quiet satisfaction in knowing he had helped save a life. Live on air, the heroic act of Ken risking his life to save the boy unfolded dramatically. As the rescued child was reunited with his grateful family, viewers and comment theaters alike marvel at the courage displayed. Admirers expressed at Ken's bravery and speculated about where the remarkable event took place. Many suggested that such selfless act deserved recognition, pondering whether Ken might receive an award from the country. Meanwhile, emotions ran high among those watching. Some were moved to tears, describing the rescue as profoundly beautiful. They hailed Ken as a real hero, alongside professionals like helicopter rescuers, firefighters, and ambulance crews who had arrived on the scene to provide further assistance. Along hero images from an extreme situation, the lives of many passengers were saved. As soon as we finish the rescue operation, we will start the investigation and assess the damage of this accident. Presented by Miyahara from the crash site. The news of the day was filled with the coverage of this accident. In the news, they are still looking for what is the cause of massive collisions involving 12 cars. The witness testimony heard a gunshot under investigation, conflicts between underground organization. The number of dead victims involved in the conflict between crime organizations are 200. People are starting to get interested in this massive accident, but they are not interested in the scale of this accident. The day's headlines were dominated by extensive coverage of a tragic accident involving a massive collision of 12 cars. News outlets continued to investigate the cause behind this catastrophic event, with speculation ranging from witness accounts of gunshots to ongoing inquiries into potential conflicts involving underground organizations. Amidst the chaos, reports indicated that the incident may have been linked to a violent clash between crime syndicates, resulting in a staggering death toll of 200 victims. The narrative suggested that tensions between these organizations escalated to the point where they directly contributed to the accident. This revelation added a layer of complexity and intrigue to the incident, prompting further scrutiny and public concern about the underlying issues at play. Dubbed as a nameless hero who selflessly rescued many, his actions captured the imagination of the public. As modern society grappled with ongoing challenges, the focus shifted towards unraveling the identity of this enigmatic figure. The world now eagerly seeks answers. Who is this man, and what compelled him to risk everything to save others? Several days after the broadcast of the accident, tensions ran high in the office as questions were raised about Ai's actions. Someone confronted her, asking why she had taken such risks, especially by initiating a broadcast during what was clearly an emergency. They criticized her for not making direct calls and relying solely on messenger from the crash site. Ai listened quietly, contemplating how to explain her decisions. Another colleague interjected, expressing concern over the worrying they had all felt for Ai during the incident. Ai looked up, surprised by the level of concern shown. The team leader intervened, acknowledging their worrying but emphasizing relief that Ai wasn't harmed. Despite the scolding, the team leader's tone softened as they informed Ai that, due to the success of the broadcast, she would only need to write a letter of apology. Ai agreed, relieved but still astonished by the turn of events. The team leader added that she would now be tasked with writing articles about the mysterious hero from the accident, as public interest in his identity soared. With a nod of understanding, Ai returned to work, ready to delve into the next chapter of this compelling story. With a nod of understanding, Ai returned to work, ready to delve into the next chapter of this compelling story. In her mind, Ai firmly believed that someone hailed as a hero by civilians must inherently be a good person. With this conviction driving her, she resolved to track down the hero and uncover more about his motivations and bravery, ensuring his selfless act didn't go unrecognized. Ken glanced at his phone and noticed an outgoing call from Hermes. On the other end, Hermes greeted him with a hint of amusement, remarking on the irony of being addressed by the nickname Citizen Hero. Ken brushed off the nickname, indicating his preference to avoid such informal titles. Hermes, taking the conversation lightly, laughed and assured Ken that he was just teasing. He then asked Ken directly what he needed. Ken's tone turned serious as he responded, "I'm looking for someone." In a bustling city dominated by towering skyscrapers, a poster seeking a local hero caught the attention of Ai and her colleagues at the office. Amidst the chaos of incoming calls, Ai answered skeptically, dismissing the idea as a probable prank. Leaning back in her chair, Ai regretted initiating the hero search, feeling disheartened by what seemed like a futile endeavor. Online, various individuals were dressing up as the supposed hero, generating a wave of commentary questioning their authenticity. Ai cynically mused that everyone was merely pretending to be the hero. An email grabbed Ai's attention, prompting her to urgently contact her superior before hastily leaving the office. Concerned, Ai's senior called out to her, questioning her departure during such a busy period. Ignoring the interruption, Ai hurriedly packed up. Seemingly distracted by something on her desktop, a picture sent to her, depicting the very man who had once rescued her from a perilous situation. In the late afternoon under a darkening sky, Ai sat in her car, dialing the number of the person who had sent her the picture earlier. "Good afternoon," she began when they picked up. "This is Miyahara, the person you contacted this morning." I'll be arriving soon. Where should we meet? The voice on the other end replied that they would meet at the cemetery office in Park Cemetery. Understood, I acknowledged. I'm heading there now. Driving along the road, I soon arrived at Park Cemetery. She parked her car and met the person who had sent the picture. You're the one who sent this picture, right? I inquired. Your name is Akiyama Takaru. Yes, the man confirmed. I saw him a few months ago. I remember because he was dressed quite unusually. After he left offerings at the grave, he bought a large amount of alcohol and proceeded to drink the entire time right in front of that gravestone. I looked over at the gravestone, which bore the name Yanagimoto family. Glancing down at her phone, she muttered, "It's here." He said it was a grave that meant something to him around June, likely shortly after an incident. I recalled the smell of alcohol and the man's muddy clothing. She began to understand the situation. Feeling a pang of empathy, she asked Akiyama, "Can you tell me whose grave this is, and who the person buried here was?" On the news, the reporter announced the search for the hero who had bravely intervened during a bus accident in June. Describing the individual depicted in the picture, the reporter noted his distinctive features: chubby hair and wearing a pale brown jacket, a white t-shirt, and gray pants. This mystery passenger had selflessly saved numerous lives during the harrowing incident. In recognition of his heroic actions, it was declared that he would be honored with medals and various rewards. Furthermore, a substantial reward of 1 million yen was offered to anyone providing information that would lead to identifying and locating this courageous individual. The announcement aimed to mobilize the community in finding and acknowledging the unsung hero of the bus accident. Ken strode purposefully down the street, reflecting aloud that those searching for him should have already caught on. He harbored a deep desire to dismantle the criminal organization responsible for his parents' murder and the disappearance of Emi, though he acknowledged his current physical condition wasn't optimal for such a task. Setting a trap seemed the safest course of action for now. Mapping out the connections between the perpetrators and their financiers, Ken suspected a powerful sponsor was behind it all. He strategized to provoke them into making a move, hoping to glean clues about Emi in the process. Ken swiftly turned his head, pinpointing the source. Beneath a tunnel, a gathering of people caught his attention. Some smoking, others drinking. Among them, a conversation unfolded callously about a drugged woman who had been sold off for entertainment. Outraged, Ken confronted them, criticizing their despicable behavior and accusing them of living like degenerates dependent on satisfying their base instincts. Criticizing their despicable behavior and accusing them of living like degenerates dependent on satisfying their base instincts. With determination and disdain in his voice, Ken called them out as trash, highlighting their cowardice and inability to live decently without exploiting others. His words hung in the air, challenging the gathered group to confront the consequences of their actions. The man is mad and come closer to Ken, and said, "What did you say?" He punched Ken, and said, "You're getting carried away just because I was silent. I will rip that mouth of yours." Ken dodging all the attacks. The other man didn't know that Ken was able to touch the attack. This man said, "Where was that spirit of yours from earlier? Why don't you say it once more?" The man were about to punch again, but Ken hold the man fist. Ken strongly hold it, and he rotated the hands of the man. The men shout from his pain. The other men look to them. The man behind Ken was about to punch, but Ken is more faster and he kicked the balls of the man easily, and the man throw leads unconscious. Attention were on the place. The men just looked to Ken. Ken said, "You guys were the ones who swallow your fists first. This is self-defense, all right." The other men in the area were frightened of Ken. Someone in the crowd shouted, "What are you scared of?" Spurred into action, the men began their attack on Ken. They were poised and ready to fight. One of the attackers threw a punch, but Ken deftly dodged it, grabbed the man's head, and slammed it into the ground. Another man, building a knife, snarled, "You bastard." Ken evaded the knife strike, grabbed the man's face, and flung him aside. Meanwhile, a group of other men who had been sitting around finally noticed the commotion. One of them remarked, "Someone's making a lot of noise. It's getting really rowdy." He turned into another man and instructed, "Go take care of it." The man responded, "Understood," nothing that the situation seemed serious. As he approached, he saw his comrades lying unconscious on the ground. Alarmed, he called out, "Just who are you?" Alarmed, he called out, "Just who are you?" Ken replied calmly, just a passing civilian. It was getting noisy, so I came to check it out. The man indebted, sneered. Don't get cocky just because you took down some underlings. If you want to live long, that is. He launched a punch, but Ken was faster. Ken dodged the attack, kicked the man, grabbed his face, delivered a powerful punch that sent him flying. The men who had been sitting earlier watch in shock as the Monday had sent to handle the situation was now unconscious on the ground. They stared at Ken in disbelief, asking each other, who is that guy? Desperation took over as they grabbed bottles and shouted, just die. But Ken, moving with incredible speed, quickly defeated the three men. As the dust settled, Ken noticed a light behind him, hinting at the arrival of a new threat. Ken turned his head and saw a car speeding toward him, the driver intent on running him over. The driver shouted, die, as the car hurtled forward. And phased, Ken stood his ground. With remarkable strength, he stopped the car by planting his foot firmly on the ground, causing the vehicle to crash. The impact threw the driver against the windshield, shattering the glass. With his eyes glowing and a smile on his face, Ken approached the wrecked car. He grabbed the man's collar and effortlessly yanked him out of the vehicle, throwing him onto the ground. The man, now terrified, looked up and pleaded, I'm sorry. I beg you, please spare me. Ken gazed at the trembling man and reassured him, don't worry. I won't kill you. The woman gasped and woke up, disoriented. She glanced around and muttered, this place is Ken. Noticing her, asked, are you finally awake? The woman, still groggy and confused, stammered, oh. Ken instructed her, stay there quietly. This will be over soon. Turning his attention to a man nearby, Ken's expression became intimidating. Isn't that right, Yosuke-kun? He said, demanding, hand over your phone. Yosuke, visibly nervous, complied and handed his phone to Ken. Moving closer, Ken asked, your name is Yosuke Maeda, right? Yosuke confirmed, that's correct. Ken then inquired, what does your father do? I see, plan to use this information to dig deeper into the situation. Yosuke replied, he's a member of the National Parliament. Ken, thinking to himself, confirmed that everything matched his investigation so far. He pressed on, does your father know that you're involved in this? Yosuke averted his gaze, staring at the floor. Ken dialed Yosuke's father using Yosuke's phone. When the call connected, Yosuke's father answered harshly, where have you been wandering around? Do you know what time is it, you pathetic fool? Are you causing trouble again like last time? Ken responded, are you his father? I need to inform you about the things he's involved in. Yosuke has been caught with drugs and is also involved in attempted rape, assault, and various other crimes. He was caught red-handed, so a prison sentence of at least 10 years is inevitable. We also have solid evidence from the dashcam of luxury cars parked here. Mr. Maeda, confused and alarmed, asked, what do you mean? Are you the police? Ken replied, no, I'm just a passerby. Your son and his friends subjected me to terrible violence. I will need compensation. Ken moved the phone closer to Yosuke and asked, you guys made the first move, isn't that right? His father, no more anxious, asked, is this true? Yosuke, defeated, said, Dad, I'm sorry, Mr. Maeda. Exasperated, said, 50 million then. More than that is ... double quotes. Ken interrupted, we'll start right away. You name the title. Mr. Maeda, trying to de-escalate, said, you won't get away with this either. Let's handle this peacefully, okay? Ken countered, a mind of your stature can easily squash any licks to the media or broadcasting stations. Even if an ordinary person has evidence and files a lawsuit, they won't be taken seriously. This is the quickest way, Mr. Maeda. No resigned, told his son, Yosuke, you've been nothing but a burden to me. Ken, growing impatient, said, enough with the excuses. Just give me an answer. Mr. Maeda conceded, I promise not to involve the victim any further. The money will be prepared. There will be untraceable check and bundles of $100 bills in old currency. Ken, satisfied, said, finally, we understand each other. Come to this place at 6 a.m. tomorrow. He ended the call and tossed the phone back to Yosuke. Ken turned to the woman and said, sorry to keep you waiting. I know you want to go home quickly, but if you leave now, You'll be hunted by nightmares for the rest of your life. To get rid of your fear, you need to eliminate this source. What happens today should be resolved today. That way, you can approach tomorrow with a clear mind. They give the money. Ken took money from the bag and threw it to the woman. She exclaimed, "Are you really?" "Thank you so much," Ken asked. "Who are you? Did you talk to him?" Dismissing her gratitude, he added, "No need to thank me. I didn't help you out of goodwill," the woman insisted, "but you're a lifesaver to me." Ken replied, "I'm just a passing thug. Forget about it." Mr. Maeda was furious and said, "I won't let this slide. If I let him go, my political career could be threatened." He called Yugo Mizukami, who answered the phone and asked, "What is it, teacher?" Mr. Maeda replied, "I need you to take care of a man. Use any means necessary. The reward is 50 million yen in cash." Yugo inquired, "Did someone pick a fight with you? I'd like to hear more about this."
Thanks for watching. If you enjoy Ken Yanagimoto's epic journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more mythical battles and tales of vengeance. Stay tuned and enjoy watching.